So we've been running these talks, a couple last quarter, one here, I assume a couple next quarter. We have the opportunity to do this one. And that seemed like one we should grab. And so I will say I spent 3 hours Saturday afternoon, I think, vibe coding. I'm not sure. That was an exercise in Python and the Windows PowerShell and chat, which was interesting. I mentioned this at lunch yesterday, and Henderson said, "What's vibe coding?" So we're going to find out. All right.
Alright, so who started vibe coding? We got some people. Alright, so my name's Adon, I'm a 2L, and last quarter I was part of the AI lab. The AI lab, the way that it worked was basically we had the whole quarter to build an end-to-end consumer app that helped people navigate their leases. Now, this app, we made the first prototype in 2 days, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And the way that I was basically, I did all the engineering for the app, basically. My programming background, I did not study computer science. I learned how to program slightly in my first job, and then I kind of honed those skills throughout. Now, I would say I'm an average programmer, but I do think that vibe coding for lawyers is very interesting, and there's a few reasons for that. I think the first one is because these tools run on large language models, and the large language models, the weapons that these large language models use are words, which is the same as lawyers. Lawyers, words are our weapons, and so I think there's a very interesting opportunity for lawyers to be able to create apps because they have the domain knowledge and they know how to use the words. So you'll see, so the way that I want to go through this presentation will be a little different. It'll be part me explaining like how to do it, and then part actually doing it. We're gonna be running right up to the end of the talk because I want to get like a very simple app up. It does take a little bit of time for Cursor to get ramped up. So let's get started. All right, so this is also the AI lab. Like I said, I think it was 9 of us. We made this app in 1 quarter. One thing that I will say about the app, so the initial prototype, I made it in 2 days. So I emailed Kimball after the first class, the professor, and I was like, Kimball, I can build this thing. What do you think about this? And I sent him a memo. He said, yeah, do it. So I worked on it the weekend, and then on Monday, I sent him like the initial prototype. One thing, when we're building these tools, it's very easy to think that you have like some sort of superpower, and it's like, oh, I can build the next Facebook, I'll be able to build that's Google, or the next Google. No, I don't think that's the answer. I think we can build the first idea, and I think we can iterate on it and then hire some firepower to get it to market, which is kind of what we did for the AI lab. Like, I built this first prototype, I had all sorts of issues, and we started, we started fixing bugs, we started figuring out what secure methods to use to handle people's leases, and then we ended up with what actually became Lease Chat. But it's pretty naive, and I think this is happening a lot to a lot of people that are vibe coding, that they think they can create a production app, after watching this talk. Like, probably not. You probably need some programming background or have somebody that does to kind of get it up to speed. So this app that we made, basically the way that Lease Chat works is you input your lease and it does an AI analysis on you that was basically, the analysis was based off research that we did on landlord-tenant laws, and then we supplemented it with just AI searching prompts to find different statutes in the different municipalities. So it works pretty well. We get like 10, 15, we got up to 20 queries a day from people. And I mean, I didn't think when I built this tool, I didn't think like this was gonna happen, but even so, like 2-3 months after, people are still using it. I get notifications on Slack every day. So, all right, so what is vibe coding? So this is Andre Karpathy, I'm not really sure how to say it. He used to be, I believe, the chief AI scientist. He used to be very high up in Tesla. He was also one of the very first people at OpenAI. Super smart guy, and this is kind of the tweet that ignited vibe coding. He kind of named it. And one thing that I want you to remember about what this tweet says is these middle lines. So it's, forget that the code even exists. So Karpathy was like, there's this new type of coding. You just talk to the AI and it outputs the code for you, and you can create all sorts of things. And vibe coding is not only something that people who don't know how to program are doing. This is something that engineers, like very smart engineers like the top here, are doing. I think I read a tweet the other day that said like most of the code that is now written for Anthropic, it's made the Claude models, is actually written by Claude code. So you can imagine like how, and that's this year, right? Like a year from now, I can only imagine how much code will actually be written by code itself. I can tell you, I wrote a good amount of code. My fiance's back there. She was with me before Vibe coding, and she would see me like coding on the computer at night, making little apps. And I don't really code how I used to anymore. I code to find bugs and fix them. Kind of like, this is like a controversial opinion, but kind of like if you were going to write a memo with AI, and then you go in and fix it. That's kind of how I code these days. Anyways, I think it's going to pick up even more as these models get better. So, all right. So again, like I said, why now? Like these models are getting really good. They're getting better. Opus 4.6 came out, I think, 2 weeks ago. I think it's the best coding model for. There's a lot of reasons why, but I think it's pretty subjective. But I think overall, it just gives you code that works, and that's Opus 4.6 by Claude. So, anyways, like these tools could do all sorts of cool things. All right, so I'm going to go on a little bit of a talk on, I was going to go over like all the parts of AI, but I don't think we have time, so I'm just going to go straight to what I think is the most important part for this talk. So, brief overview. So basically, the models are the large language models. That's ChatGPT, that's Claude, that's Gemini, and so those are driving these agents. What the agents then do is they take these models and they use these different, what we call tools or skills. And basically all that is a prompt. The fancy name for it is skill, but it's really just a prompt, like words in the back end telling the agent what to do. The agent then knows to send that information, the correct information, back to the model. The model outputs more text in, and then the agent kind of iterates on that and uses those tools. I'll show how it works in a little bit. Okay, so for AI, there's a few different tools that are built on top of these models, right? And so those are chatbots, which is like ChatGPT. There's a tool called RAG, which is Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is what you get from a Westlaw deep research where it pulls out information from its database. There's also like voice agents that can talk or listen and turn that into text, which I will actually show you guys when I'm coding. And the most important thing for vibe coding are agents. Now, agents, I think, are the most important thing. I don't know if any of you guys have been following, there's something that came out like last week, it's called ClaudeBot. And it's like the beginning of an agent. I think it's a little overrated. I don't think it works quite how you see it on Twitter. I tried to play with it this weekend. It doesn't work quite that well. But the way that I would describe an agent is that it does like the end-to-end process. So the chatbot is going to give you information. The RAG is going to give you information. Voice AI is going to give you the information, and then you're going to take it and do something with it. But I think the agent actually takes in the input and it comes up with a solution. So I think people use agents as a very broad umbrella term. Like they'll say, oh, an AI agent for this. I think if it can't do like the actual whole process and give you like work product at the end, it's not an agent. And I think that these AI coding tools are one of the first real types of agents where it actually does the end-to-end work. It's not perfect, but it does a pretty good enough job where you could give it to somebody. I don't think it's getting there, but like for example, if you use Claude, like the Claude agent or the OpenAI agent, and have them make you an Excel or make you a Word document, it's quite not there. It's not quite there. You're still gonna download it, take the text, and use it and edit it. I think the coding agents, you could just kind of ping pong back and forth, and it'll create you the actual work product that you will use. So one example of an agent that people don't think about is like self-driving. Like it's end to end. You're not guiding it. Like you can take over for it, but like if you're driving a Tesla and you put it on self-driving, it's going to drive itself, and you can get from point A to point B. So it's end to end, and I think that's really what differentiates agents from other types of AI tools. And I do think that this is the future. Even with ClaudeBot, I think once it gets a couple iterations in, we'll have agents that send emails, which I think there already are, but really freestyle that you could just tell like a chatbot, like, hey, send me this email, and they'll go and do it. So, okay, the agent loop, it'll start, so you'll tell us something like, hey, agent, run this code. It's going to think, and it's going to actually write the code. What the agent does differently from the other tools is that then it's going to observe it. So it's going to like think, right? And basically it's going to take that output and take it through another like iteration. And so from that, it's going to say like, okay, is this code good or is it not? And then from that, it's going to then reflect on it and then send you back the information, kind of iterate on it. But it iterates on its own before giving you the actual work product. We'll see that when we actually do the demo. So yeah, so same thing. Like the biggest thing that the AI agent does is it bridges that gap that was there before between humans and AI, where humans before had to do the work, like AI agents kind of do it all together. So okay, so in practice, the tool that we're going to use for this demonstration is going to be Cursor. There are a few different tools, which I'll talk a little bit about in the next slide. I think Cursor is the best for people that already know how to program because it works just like an IDE, which is basically like a code editor. So it has the files on the left, it has the code in the middle. The thing that Cursor does is that it has the chatbot on the right side. When Cursor first came out, it was basically you had like your code in the middle, and it would give you suggestions on what to code. Then they added like this chat. And now it started coding itself. Like it would start changing the actual code. And now what it does, it actually takes over your computer and it runs tests, it writes code, it runs tests, it takes screenshots of the actual deployed app to make sure that it looks how it should look. And so I think that is more of an agent. And I do think like these coding tools are agents, but there are other tools. Oh, let me go. I'm going to skip forward. So there are other tools that you could use. So for example, there's Lovable. Which actually have not heard of anybody using Lovable, but there's Replit, there's V0. Claude Code is also a really potent like vibe coding tool. The only thing, I'm not using it for this demo. I would use it, I've been using it more than Cursor recently, but Claude Code, you can't see the output. It's kind of like, it does it on the back end, like it edits your files on the back end, but it doesn't show it in real time. So it's a little bit harder to follow. So I wanted to use Cursor because it's got all kind of on one screen I could show. But for example, Replit and Lovable are really easy for people that are just starting to use. It takes care of a lot of the back-end issues, like if you're trying to put up a database or deploy it on a server. It does a lot of that for you, and it's more built for like beginners. But once you get your feet wet and it's like, all right, I know how to vibe code, Cursor and Claude are the best. So all right, I'm gonna skip. Okay. So the next thing is the actual demonstration that I'm going to do, which we're doing pretty good on time. All right. So for the demonstration, what I want to do is I want to talk to you guys about my corporate restructuring class. Ran a little bit about it. So on this picture are my notes from yesterday's class. And so the way that Professor Bopola teaches this class. Okay, so the class is basically about how companies restructure their debt, and how creditors and debtors, he calls it hosing each other, but they screw each other and do all these things that sometimes legal, sometimes illegal, to like get more money out of their when the company's going under distress. The way Professor Bopola teaches this class is through diagrams. I did not get a picture of one of his diagrams. It kind of looks like this. These are my notes. But sometimes it's a little difficult to follow. There's a lot of moving pieces. Like I said, his diagram looked just like this. Maybe he had a little bit more room, just on my piece of paper. But one thing that I always struggle with, I was thinking about what to build, and I was like, oh, maybe I could build something that I could actually use. So one thing about, if you've never taken a Bopola class, he doesn't allow laptops. So you can't just like command that. Any cold calls too. So you want to have like pretty good notes coming into class. And so I was like, okay, what if I print out something like some sort of diagram based on the cases that we read, so that I have for class that I could like reference, and then build my own diagram after that for my notes, so I can learn the material. But at least I'm not completely lost when he starts drawing boxes on the board. Anyways, I want to recreate what he does in class, but based. Okay, so here's how I'll lay it out. The way that I would think about it if I'm gonna vibe code is, how can I take myself out of the picture? So if I were going to be able to make this diagram, the way that I would do it is, first I'll read the case and see like, okay, this next slide, right? So every time he's teaching, he has the entity structure, he has the debtors, the equity, the assets, the creditors, the debt amounts. That doesn't really matter for this demonstration, but I know that if I'm going to do this as a human, I need to know who these parties are, and I need to read the case, and I need to spot them. right? And then to create this diagram, I need to draw boxes, I need to draw lines, I need to draw little notes about what each of them might mean. So what I want to do is I want to take myself out of the picture and say like, okay, how can I have AI do this for me? And so the way that you would do that is you would have AI kind of do the same thing. It's like, okay, let's read this case, let's connect the dots on different parties. But to do that, we need to tell the AI what we're looking for. So it goes back to prompting, and we could do a whole nother talk on prompting, but it's like you want to be very specific about what you want the AI to build, right? So there's two separate things that you want to know. You want to have some domain knowledge, right? So you want to know like what the heck's going on what you're trying to build. So for me, the domain knowledge is knowledge about how Bacola teaches this class, and also knowledge about how corporate restructuring works. And so after that, I want to know what exists in the world. So I want to have some technical knowledge. And you develop this technical knowledge through experience, right? So for me to build this app would be a lot easier for anybody that hasn't tried me, for Professor Picker that he built for 3 hours this week. And it might be a little bit easier for me because I already know what exists. I know that maybe Python might not be the best tech stack for this app, or I might know that some tech stack exists, or I might know that some open source software exists that might make this app, that might make this easier. One example is, if I'm going to give a PDF to AI to read, it's not going to just be able to read the PDF the way that you would input a PDF to ChatGPT, because a PDF is an image-based document. So what you have to do to extract that text is use OCR, which is, I forget, like optical
Character recognition.
So it extracts the text from that PDF, and now you can feed that text to the AI so that it can read the case and like output this structure. So if I don't know that, and I try to vibe code something like this, I'm going to continuously run into it. Sometimes AI can figure it out and be like, hey, you actually need OCR for this. I think in this case it would be able to figure it out, but maybe you don't end up with the best OCR solution. Like in LeaseChat, I had not really used the OCR based app before for such a large, like we were inputting 250 page leases in there, and we had to make sure that the OCR got it all correctly. So now I know everything that there is to know about OCR and like what tools to use for each different, for the different frameworks. And so going back to just like the technical knowledge, this is something that you want to know, like even for like the user interface, like what type of user interfaces exist out there? What type of icons exist? What are the best colors for this? Going back to like, okay, what model should I use for this? Do I need a search model? In LeaseChat, we use Perplexity as one of our models because we needed to have like live web search that was accurate and like up to date. So we couldn't just use a regular foundational model that was, had a training cutoff. So these are things that you want to have in mind when you start building. Okay, so the tech stack that we're going to use for this project, I'm going to use Cursor. So Next.js is a web framework that is very compatible with these AI tools. I think it's a newer web framework. And I don't know, for some reason, I think maybe these AI tools have been more trained on Next.js because the output is pretty good. It's also pretty lightweight and it's pretty easy to understand, similar to like how Python is pretty user-friendly because it's easy to understand the language and what's going on. Similar to Next.js. So Next.js is a JavaScript-based framework. The other thing that we're going to use is we're going to use ShadCN UI, which is basically their components. So I'm not a web designer. I'm barely a programmer. I'm not a web designer. So I know that ShadCN exists. These are like pre-made components to make the UI look nice. That's how we made LeaseChat. And I'm going to show you some pretty cool stuff that you can do with it. The other things, I don't think we're going to have time. So if I were, my goal, I don't think we're going to have time, but my goal was to like upload this and have you guys play with it. I don't think we'll get there, but if I was to deploy it online, I would use Vercel for my servers because it's very easy and compatible, again, with these AI coding tools. It's very easy to deploy online, and it's pretty cheap unless, once you start scaling up, it becomes not cheap, but for vibe coding, it's great. And then Supabase, which is where you would store your information. So I'm not going to use Supabase for this app because it's going to make it more complicated. But for example, when you want to think about a database, you want to think about where you want to store information. So if your app stores information, like LeaseChat, we have to store the PDFs, the lease PDFs. We have to store the people's names. We have to store the information that was coming in from the AI because we needed it to generate something else. And we needed it to be able to reuse it down the road. So this app is going to be one and done. You're going to input your lease, or you're going to input your case. It's going to create this diagram, and you're going to be able to play around with it. Okay. So, all right. So I'm gonna show you guys a few different things. So remember how I said like you need to know what exists? So I know that if I want to create a diagram like this, I know that there's a library that exists. It's called React Flow, right? And if I didn't know that it existed, I would probably I would go in Claude and say like, hey, I'm trying to build a diagram. I'm trying to build an app that has a diagram, that does X, Y, Z. What are the best open source libraries, or what kind of tech can I use to kind of glue all this together, right? So that's how I came across React Flow. React Flow is able to build interactable nodes and connect them to each other. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna open up Cursor. So this Cursor, and I'm gonna open up a project, right? And so it's gonna prompt me to open up a project. So I'm going to open up a new folder, and I'm going to call it the Bacola bot. Alright, so we have a folder, and this is kind of how you would do it on your own, if you're doing it like on Level, anything, it's kind of the same process. So, okay, when I'm vibe coding, one of the first things, there's two things that are pretty important. First, like you want to plan out where you're going to build first, and the second is that you want to go step by step. These AI tools like Cursor kind of does that on its own now, like it plans it out on its own, and it does it step by step, but even so, when you have a super elaborate plan, like LeaseChat, we call it one-shotting, where like it just builds it in one prompt. It's not really good at doing that, so you kind of want to go step by step. If we had more time, I would probably just build the first part of this app first, but for now, I'm just gonna tell it like what I want. So. Alright, so what do we have? I'm kind of gonna go on like a little, I'm just gonna vibe right now. Alright. So I have this app. It's called Whisperflow. You guys haven't used it. It's great. You press a button on your computer, and then you could talk to it. I do this to iterate super fast because you can talk a lot faster than you type. And so I'm just gonna plan out with it, right? So I'm gonna tell Cursor what I want. And one thing to know, like as I'm talking, is I'm gonna be like pretty specific. I could be more specific, but again, like we're just trying to get something out there. So okay. So I'm trying to build a Next.js app that is very lightweight. And basically what I want the app to do is I want to be able to feed it one of my corporate restructuring cases, and I want it to build a diagram based on the following items. Okay, and then I'm gonna say, so what are the following items? So, okay, so I say it like, it types it in, so pretty cool. So the debtors, the creditors, the debt amounts, the cash flow direction, the liens and the guarantees. What else do we have? We have equity assets. The equity and the assets. So this structure basically dictates how the case functions, and I want to be able to encapsulate it all in a React Flow node structure that has each of these entities in an individual node and has important nodes about what each entity what is important about each entity as far as the case goes. All right, so maybe I want to add some more stuff because I want to keep being more specific. So I want to say something like, I want you to identify each positive amount within the transactions as a green arrow and each negative one as a red arrow. At the bottom, I want you to act as Professor Vincent Bacola at University of Chicago Law School and write a paragraph summarizing the case and summarizing what is important about it. All right. I will also give you ShadCN components to use for the user interface, but as far as the user interface goes, it should just be a canvas in the middle of the screen that has the diagrams, which are PDF downloadable, and I'm also able to add new nodes delete nodes and edit nodes as I wish. It should be very editable. Please let me know how we can proceed and ask me any questions that you need that would help you build this out better. I want to build this as fast as possible, so make it very lightweight. All right, so this is kind of like my starting prompt. Very general, very vibey. So now what it's going to do is it's going to think, and it's going to start creating stuff. So in the meantime, what I do want to show you, so this is an app called Figma. So Figma is a design tool, like this is what all web designers use to design apps. And so these are a bunch of templates. So I have a bunch of templates here. And so the template that I want to use for the user interface for this is just something simple, right? So this app is called an app shell. Now Figma recently, well not recently, like probably like a year ago, they started turning everything that you have in here in this canvas it's kind of like code, but you can't see it. It's visual, but like in the back end it's code. And so what you can do, there's a thing called an MCP, Model Context Protocol. Basically, if you don't know what an API is, an API basically connects one piece of software to another. MCP is like the APIs for AI. Like it tells the model like how it should interact with the software. Figma made an MCP to connect with Cursor or plot code. And so now, before, programmers would have to look at this and like look at the measurements and make sure that it looks right on the computer. Now you can just copy this example and then just paste it onto Cursor, and then it'll give you like it'll actually it'll do it. It's crazy. And all you have to do is literally, I'm not going to go through it, but there's like an MCP section in Figma, and there's an MCP section in Cursor, and you just turn both on, and you put some, like the code in it, and then it works. It's pretty, and if you're trying to do this, just Google it. It's pretty easy to figure out. So, okay. So now it's asking me questions, right? Because I told it to ask me questions, and also because it's on plan mode. But if you're not on plan mode, if you're coding, a lot of times it's good to do that. It's good to ask it like, hey, ask me questions, so you can get like what you actually want. So, how do you want to feed a case into the app? I want to, so I want to feed a PDF, then I want there to be OCR extraction on the PDF, and then I want the text from the OCR to be fed into an AI model that will then create the structure. Okay, at the bottom, all right, so it's going to be AI generated. I want you to generate it with AI. I will create a .env file with all my API keys. We're going to be using the latest OpenAI model, the non-reasoning model. I don't even use OpenAI. That's what we're going to use. Okay, and then it's asking me like, what are you going to do for ChatCN? All right, so continue. All right, and so what I'm going to do in the meantime, more things, is I have my, take this out of the recording. So one important thing is a .env file, which basically it has like all your API keys. Which is fine, I'll delete all of these after. But basically now I have that .env file, and now that's how the app is going to be able to use ChatGPT, because it's going to use ChatGPT, the ChatGPT API, to take in my case text and then turn it into what's called JSON, which is like it's like bracketed text that a computer can read basically. And then from that JSON, it's going to turn it into the different nodes. So, okay. So okay, so if you can see, like, it's doing a lot of work here. It's like figuring out, it took a screenshot of what it looks like, it has the code from it, and so now it's going to build it. Alright, so see, now it's building like a whole plan. Alright. So, if I'm trying to build something like for real that I will go through this plan, I'll read it, kind of how I read through a memo that an associate sends me, and then I would make sure that it's correct. And if it's not, then I would reiterate, or I would just go in there and type it myself. So it's kind of like you could freestyle it. So okay, it's building out a whole thing. I'm not going to read it because I want to build this thing. So I'm just going to say build. So now it's going to start building and it's going to do its thing. Okay, so it's gonna take probably like 5 minutes to build this thing, maybe a little bit longer. If anybody has questions in the meantime, but I probably won't be able to take questions at the end, or any comments. Yeah.
Could you explain more how you got like your AI, ChatGPT, into this? Like, how do you use Opus instead, or how do you decide like which AI model that this program is using?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, okay, these models all have what's called an API. So again, it like connects software to software. So the API from OpenAI, you're gonna go to the OpenAI. Like if I go to OpenAI platform, which I have it here, like. Yeah, so I'll be able to generate API keys, right? So here I have a bunch of API keys. You create a new key, and it outputs a key. It's like a code. So you put that code. You saw that file that I made earlier, the env file.
Mhm.
I then hid. Now I don't know how to pull it back up because they changed there. It's not right. Anyways, you put in the env file, and then it reads it. It reads basically like, okay, this is your API key. Let me call it. And so that API key is going to interact with some code that Cursor is going to write, and it's basically going to say, okay, based on this PDF text, I'm going to feed all this text to this code that's using this API key, which is turning on the engine to the AI model, and then it's going to output this other information, kind of like how as a viewer using a chatbot. But yeah, you get these keys. So if I wanted to use Anthropic, Claude, I would just go create a Claude account and then get the API key from Claude. So one thing to know, like the websites, like are through the actual company, so it's like OpenAI or Anthropic. You're not gonna be able to get the key from like ChatGPT.com.
Okay.
It's like through so it's a different website.
But to follow on that, Cursor, I'm just trying to understand this. Cursor is effectively outsourcing to an LLM a bunch of stuff. And the API key is the vehicle for that outsourcing.
Yeah, so Cursor makes you pay per credit. And so what Cursor is like an AI tool, so it has its own API hooked up on their back end.
Understood.
And that's how it's generating all this text.
Yes.
Correct.
But why is it going to OpenAI?
For our app or for Cursor?
I don't know. You had to give it an OpenAI API key.
Okay, the OpenAI API
Why
key
did you do
is
that?
because, so when I feed it the PDF, it's gonna do the OCR extraction, right?
In OpenAI rather than Cursor.
No, I just put an open source OCR. We're getting the text from the PDF.
Okay.
With that text, we're gonna send that text as context, and then we're gonna use that context. Like, there's gonna be a backend prompt saying like, hey, based on what I told it, get the debtors, the creditors. That information is gonna go to OpenAI, which is then gonna output the JSON file, which is JSON is what that React Flow node structure. That's what it takes. So it's gonna
That's
go.
what I mean by the outsourcing. So Cursor's not doing that.
No.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is all.
Yes.
Yeah. So Cursor is just building all the code. So everything else, like we're giving it to it.
Okay.
So it's still going. But I do think with the plan that we have, I think that it will. Go. Now, one thing that I do want to check is this .env file. I'm not sure. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
And it's building in Python or something else?
No, it's building in Next.js, which is a JavaScript framework. I highly recommend it. So I would use Python if I'm doing like any type of data analysis apps, or if it's not gonna be like public facing. If you're gonna have something like Lease Chat that is public facing, it's easier. It just performs better. There's a lot more UI options to make it like the user experience than Python. Python is more for like data analysis, and like it's really good for machine learning and like AI. Like if you're trying to build like an AI model itself, I mean, you want to use Python, you don't want to use JavaScript. So different languages are good for different things. But you could build this in Python for sure. Yes.
So how much in API credits did you just spend doing this? Like what is the cost?
For this, nothing. So I have a Cursor account. Cursor is $20 a month, and it gives you quite a good bit of good bit of credits. I don't know like how much exactly to quantify it, but I could probably build like 4 or 5 of these, maybe more
In a month?
in a month and not run out of credits. So the actual OpenAI credits is going to be super cheap. This is going to depend on the model that you use. But like for example, LeaseChat, I told you the amount of leases that we do like maybe 50, 60 leases, I mean, sometimes even close to 100 a month. And we spend maybe like $3 to $5 in OpenAI keys. So it's pretty cheap.
What model does LeaseChat go through?
LeaseChat uses one of the OpenAI models, I forget. It's like it's not the thinking one, it's like the highest. Let's see, OpenAI models. I think it's this one, 5.2. So yeah, it uses that, 5.2. I would, if Claude, if Anthropic was cheaper, we would use, I like it better. But we do spend, we also have a Perplexity API, which it ends up being around the same amount of money. The most costly thing for LeaseChat is the OCR extraction. We use a AI-based OCR extraction because we need it to be pretty accurate because they're leases, called Llama Parse, and that costs us it's like $50 a month. That's just what it costs to. We don't run out of credits, but
I was just gonna ask you, how long do you think it would have taken you to build this product without any other tools?
to put something like this together,
Yeah.
probably like a month. It just takes a long time. I mean, it's writing so much code. Although the end result that you would get would be a lot closer to what you would want it to be if you did it by yourself. It would just take a lot longer. But Thomas.
Could you work around using this OCR by just like having it extracted from a website and then you would have to do PDF reading?
Yeah, the way that, here, I'm just kind of hoping that it provides a good OCR solution. For LeaseChat, what we did is we started with we just kind of looked on Claude and said, what's the best OCR that's open source and free? And so we used that, and then it worked for a while. And then we started testing it, and it's like, okay, then you get bad results, or maybe it doesn't get images, or maybe it doesn't get like handwritten text, and so then you start testing different tools out, and that's kind of how we ended up with the Llama Parse OCR. But yeah, it's just a lot of trial and error.
How well can Cursor bug fix itself? Since if I don't know coding, something's not working on the back end, can I tell it hey, find out what's working on what's broken and try and fix it? Or do you need the coding experience to be able to kind of overcome problems?
Yeah, so okay. For simple, a tool an app like this, it would be pretty simple, and it would be able to if you're saying hey, when I'm uploading a PDF, it's not working. That will work. But if it's something for example, for LeaseChat, it's hey, what kind of OCR why is it not working for images? And then it's just gonna go in circles. So, I saw a funny meme, and it was somebody just keeps saying hey, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then it was oh, certainly, and it would try to fix it, but it couldn't. That happens a lot, and I think in every project, once you get to a certain point, you're gonna run into that issue where it's you can't get through. And that's why I'm saying it's hard to build a full production app unless you either dedicate your time to learning this very thoroughly, or actually having somebody that's more technical to look at it.
So my experience Saturday afternoon, for example, is complete. I have programmed in Python, but not in a long time. So I wanted to get some data. I'm chairing this university committee. I asked Chad a question. It said, oh, you can get the data here. We'll need to do that using Python. Okay, I loaded Python. We did all that. So I copied the Python program. We start running it, and I start getting error messages. I did screenshots. I handed those back to ChatGPT. It said, I get it. We can do this. And so we iterated back and forth for 2 or 3 hours till eventually I got the data set out I wanted. And that was the process. And I didn't write a single line of code. Yeah, it was pretty good. Pretty impressive, really.
Pretty cool. Python has, they have, there's a library called Streamlit that's very good for data analysis, and it basically makes a full web app that has a pretty good UI, just out of the box. I like making apps, if I have a lot of data, that I want to wrangle, it's pretty good for that. There's also, if you don't even have to set up a whole backend, Google has a program called Google Collaboratory, and you can just write Python code in it, and it does basically anything you want. It's not a website, but let's say I used it. This is funny. So when I was doing some legal research, this is like months ago before the models started getting really good. I would take all the cases and copy paste all of them, and then run a script that iterated over all of them and try to like extract information from them that I was looking for, and then put them all into an Excel table, and then iterate over that Excel table, and then look for certain terms. So we'll go with cell by cell, and I mean, the API calls are pretty cheap. So I ended up spending like $1, and then you get like pretty good output. So Python is pretty good for stuff. So all right, this is why I didn't want to do like such like a. This is why I said this. It might take a while, but I think it's starting to create the actual page. So if you're vibe coding, this is going to be half of the like just waiting for it to output and then testing it and then seeing if it works. Now, what's going to come out of this, I have no idea if it's going to work or not. So I think it'll be something that's like better than what I could put up in 30 minutes without code.
Okay, well, let's be clear here for a second. So think about, and I took notes, think about all the different pieces you've sort of had to master to get to this point, right? So I don't think this is simple, right? I mean, I kept writing things down. I mean, you gave us an example of 4 or 5 different tools you thought this is not critical. This is reflecting how much you've learned.
Correct.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's simple. It's just not that easy. Like you have to iterate on it a lot. And you have to. I mean, I built a bunch of these projects over the last year. So I mean, even longer. I was building apps, but. But yeah, I think if it's somebody that's starting out that doesn't know anything, I think it's easier to go into one of the other, like the Lovables, or I would say use Claude Code. So Claude has a desktop app because before your Claude Code was solely on your terminal. So it would look like this, and you have to say like, all right, Claude. Like I would have to go like cd desktop. Like you have to use like actual like computer commands. But now and then it would appear like this. Then you'd be talking to Claude on your terminal. That's why I didn't want to use Claude. But now they have an interface that does basically the same thing. And so I can, pull up a folder in my computer and then start just asking it to basically do the same thing. But it's a little more user-friendly than Cursor is at this point. The only thing is that you can't see the files, which I like looking at the files because I like to be able to see like maybe where things go wrong. But somebody that's starting out, like use this. There's another one called V0 or VO by Vercel. And I like that tool too, and they're really like cutting edge. They're putting a lot of time into AI. So I think this is done. Okay, so let me see if I can run it. So I might have to. Okay, so in Cursor. So once the code is done, like you're not just gonna be able to say like, all right, like run it. Well, that's what I'm trying to see if it could do it. I'm trying to see if it could do it. But Cursor does have this tab. I'm not sure why it says upgrade.
Because they'd like more money from you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So
Are we confused?
what it's gonna do? Okay, so here it did run it. So it's running it on my local host. But if it didn't, then you would have to open up a terminal and then run it. There's like some computer commands, very simple. You could Google them and just say like, all right. And another thing is like, if you don't know what to do, just ask it like, all right, what do I do next? Or hey, give me step-by-step instructions. I know when I was setting up LeaseChat, there was a time where like I didn't know how to set up a database that automatically deleted the PDFs in a specific amount of time after it was used. So I literally just asked Cursor, I was like, hey, how do you set up, like what are the commands? And Cursor's not even doing it. Cursor just gave me instructions, like what do I do to set up a database like this? And then it gave me step-by-step instructions. I followed them and I was able to do it. So a lot of times, like just tell it to tell you and it'll do it. So okay, so it's running on my local. So running on local means that it's just running on my computer, like on my laptop. This is not accessible to anybody else. To be able to deploy it, you have to go through a whole nother process. It's not difficult. It's just like tedious, and you have to like connect it with a server, and you have to pay money and all this stuff. But I can use this app right now. Let's try it. All right, so Let's do a lighter.
Oh, let's see Serta. No, okay, that's all right.
Is Serta?
No, I was playing. Serta's pretty complicated. Pick something easy.
So let's see if it works. One thing that I don't like about it running on here is that I can't see what's happening in the terminal. I can't see if there's any. Let me run it on another VM. Run start. See, so now you might run into bugs. So, okay, so now it's running OCR. I don't know why. All right, see, so here's like getting into errors. So now it's like, this will be what will probably happen to, like anybody. So you'd say, okay, I'm getting an error. Make it so that once I upload PDF, it auto generates the diagram. All right, so I would just be iterate with errors. Yes.
So while it's doing that, my point was similar. Chris admitted the term vibe is very relative. I spent a month doing this, and this seems like a vibe. But as somebody who has to restart my laptop when my Wi-Fi doesn't work, what the hell, right? I mean, this is as confusing as your diagram. The Wall Street Journal had an article, I haven't read it yet, but it's today on vibe coding for dummies, and they were talking about, I wanted to resize 100 photos in a folder, so I built my own app to resize the photos. This seems like it's not worth the effort to resize photos, and I guess I'm kind of curious about the delta between your vibe, your professor's vibe, and my vibe when it comes to this.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it depends what you're trying to build. I think for the resizing, I think it's pretty reasonable to build that, but you have to do some research first.
Okay.
And I think that makes you appreciate a little bit, how software just works, because it's not that simple. But it's okay, if I'm trying to resize a picture, you might ask okay, how might I build, ask really these AI bots. How would I go about resizing pictures? What are the components I have to go into it? Because I'll tell you hey, you might have to make the pixels half size or something. Then you ask, okay, what would be the best web framework to be able to do this? Or how could I make it on my local? So you kind of have to know the jargon, okay, how can I run it on my local easily? And in an easy to make app, and it'll do it. So I think for that's pretty good. I made an EPUB, there's an EPUB reader on the computer. I made one that does EPUB to PDF, and I made it in 5 minutes, kind of like this, but on Claude. And there's more moving parts to this, and it made it pretty good, and now I use it. Sometimes I'll download EPUB files that I want to turn them to PDFs, and I just open up the app on my desktop and I run it. So simple things like that. I think if you're trying to make And here's people say I automated my whole company, or I am doing all my legal work with it now. Probably not. I'm very skeptical when I see people on LinkedIn saying I built a voice agent that saves me $10,000. Maybe, but you probably didn't build it yourself. You probably
Well, I guess
it's not that
what
simple.
I'm really getting at is the cost-benefit analysis of learning how to do this, when I assume in 6 months, most of these steps will then be automated within themselves, right? I mean, is it worth me going out and figuring out all these projects when a year ago I would have had to learn twice as much, now I'm learning half as much. I'm assuming it's going to continue scaling to the point where how much of this do I need to learn in order to be an effective lawyer? This is really what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. I think right now, I don't think it really helps with law, being able to build these apps. I don't think it's going to help you as a lawyer. 1 second, sorry.
Or have it make an outline for me, right? I mean,
Structure. So now it's
That's a really
getting
good question. I like it.
Thank you. Okay, go to screenshot. Yeah, I don't think it'll actually make you a better lawyer right now. Yeah, I think I see people on LinkedIn saying they'll say I built this app to help me redline tools, and it's probably not. You're probably just trying to get views on this.
Okay.
I do think where it could help is as these tools get better, because you have domain knowledge, right? And so Professor Picker knows a lot more about antitrust than I do, and so he could play around with these tools and say he could learn more and be able to contribute to a project that is does something with antitrust law that uses AI more so than me. So it's almost like lawyers are kind of the vessels for this domain knowledge, that they can use these as their playground to test theories. Hey, what if there's a what if I know something about contract law that nobody else knows, and I can make an app like this really quickly for myself to just get validation, and I could input the PDF structure of the contract, and then I give it my prompting, and then it outputs this, right? And I think it's getting easier and easier to the point where like you don't even really need to do it this way. You could start with like V0, or you could start even with Claude. Like Claude and ChatGPT have these like playgrounds on their chatbots where like they'll build like very simple one-page websites for you that you can play around with. And so, but I think the thing is the tools are getting better. And so I think there might become a time where you could just actually not have to go through that whole learning curve and just tell it what you want, it'll output something like that.
Part of this is clearly an exercise, right? So that's what, when I did this Saturday afternoon, I asked Chad a question, said I can't do that, we could do it this way. Okay, let's go find out how hard that is. That's what I wanted to do. And it was 3 hours, okay. But do I think I learned some stuff? Yeah. Do I think I could do it again? Yes. I'd done a little before, a much more truncated version. Is that a good skill that I can put to work day to day? I doubt it. But I think I have a better understanding, and you know, from my perspective, each time I learn something, I'm not quite sure where the knowledge is going to go, but I'm happy to have it in.
You know what else it's good for? I think as software becomes more accessible, it'll be easier to implement technology into small law firms, or you know, for example, I was talking to the professor at the Housing Initiative Clinic. He's like, "Oh, we don't use AI." Maybe like building little internal tools that help. And so I do think that if you put enough time, it's easier to build tools for yourself. They might not work as good as like the enterprise tools, but they're free or cheap, and you'll learn a lot about like what is important to your work and what can be automated and what can't. So when somebody comes and tries to sell you the new shiny software, it's like, okay, like you kind of understand how it works, and you'll be able to tell better if, all right, is it worth it? Like right now I'm taking a class called Generative AI with Professor Walters, and we're talking about like, okay, like is Westlaw or Lexis or Vincent, like which one's better? And so we're looking under the hood and we're learning a lot about like how these tools are built. And so what better way to understand how these tools are built than by, you know, building something yourself. Good.
If I will come closer to you. So if I may, I have a perspective to your question. I'm a computer scientist.
She's way smarter than me.
I'm a computer scientist trying to dig into law. Why I'm doing it, I will not become a lawyer. I will never be able to compete with you. But when I talk about legal topics, I took contracts and I took torts. It doesn't make me a lawyer, but I can talk to you, right?
Sure.
So I think to your Professor Picker's point, I really liked it. Will you ever be able to compete with computer scientists? No. It's like a first year law student trying to practice law because I took torts.
Yeah, okay.
But will you be better lawyer? I think definitely yes.
Okay.
Because I think you will understand the technology better.
Yeah.
In cases and in your practice. I think you will definitely be better.
I agree with that completely.
This thing is not cooperating, so. I don't know how hard codes
Live demos.
Live
What are the
demos.
like?
So legal research seems like it is and will probably still be kind of the crux of a lot of legal work. Is there a point where you think you should stop using a normal model to research and you would ever build an app for some sort of legal research?
So the question is,
Like if all I do is legal research and writing, when would I potentially want to build an app in that?
I think not so much like an app, I think more so like a function for you to do. Like, so for example, one thing that I think is like pretty useful is like maybe building a scraper that scrapes Google Scholar. And you give it a prompt and it goes and scrapes and does a bunch of different combinations of searches. That's a little bit more advanced, but I think, you know, if you build like a few of these, you do a few iterations and you know where to look for the information, I think you could do something like that. The other thing could also be like I said, like just little like things to make your life easier every day. So for example, something where you can, the thing is that these chatbots are adding them all the time. If you want to summarize a case, you can put it into the chatbots, right? So I think if you're doing legal research and writing, I think a lot of it is just, you have to be creative. and see. But I don't really have an answer like how, like when it would be useful. This is more like a
Useful to roll your own, right? That's the critical issue, right? So we've obviously got the LLMs generally, then we've got Lexis and Westlaw, and they've got their own things. And so what are the circumstances under which when you look at the universe of things that are available to you off the rack, you say, I need my own specialized thing, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll give you like this goes back to the example on like a script that I made back before, where it's like right now for me to summarize a bunch of cases, like let's say I want to summarize 80 cases, I can't just put them all on ChatGPT and say summarize all. I can't put them in. There's no tool that exists that can do that, but I know that underneath the hood, the way that these things work is that they read the PDF or they read the text and then they make a summary. So I could create like a for loop, like a code loop, where I input all the text at once, or all the PDFs at once, and then it goes one by one, like, okay, summarize PDF, and then I run it, and like in 10 minutes I come back to my computer and I have all the summaries. Whereas OpenAI wouldn't be able to do that. That's something that I've done before. I was doing some research, like legal research, and I had like 80 PDFs to go through, and I was like, which ones are most important? And there's no tool right now. Maybe Notebook LM might be able to, but even so, like with so many sources, it's gonna miss things. But if you go one by one and you output a summary of all of them, and then you have a summary that summarizes all of those, and you kind of narrow it down, you can get a little bit better output.
Okay, I played with Harvey for 15 minutes, right? So, and I downloaded all of the exhibits in the FTC's case against maybe Amazon. That was 360 exhibits or something like that. It sucks that in immediately. So a tool like that can do that at scale. This might be a cheaper way of doing it than Harvey, but Harvey's pretty good at scale.
The tools are getting better.
Oh,
Like,
cool.
it's, you know,
Yeah,
That's
Opus 4.6 I think has gone through like hundreds and hundreds of cases for me on like a single prompt.
Really?
Sometimes.
Wow.
The new model is like a little terrifying. Fortunately, it like misses a couple dots that I still will have a job, but they're really impressive.
That's interesting. And you're feeding those in as PDFs?
No, I just I have a legal question and I just have it on the research mode and it goes for like 15 minutes. Like I just asked it about the historical origins of asylum at the common law and the debates in the legislative history, and it will produce like 15-page reports citing cases every few sentences, and it's really impressive, and it does things that I would take me weeks.
This is 4.6?
4.6, yeah.
Okay.
Have you then looked at the cases? Have you
Yeah,
verified them? Because Claude isn't naturally linked up with like a legal research database.
That's
So
what
you're
I'm about
only gonna get the more publicized ones that might be on like Google Scholar, but you're not gonna get like every case ever published in the same way that like Lexis or Westlaw, a plugin that connects it
one
to.
thing that I've seen though, so this Claude bot, it can like log on. I was playing around with it. I made it look at Twitter and like just take screenshots of Twitter and like send me interesting tweets, and it could bypass it could bypass like the login, which is the first tool that I've seen that could do that. So I think as these tools like become more agentic, you could just have it go on Westlaw, tell it where to click, and like it can kind of do it for you.
Sure, yeah.
It generates more than Supreme Court cases. I'm getting appellate cases and district court cases, and a thing I really love using AI for is finding me the perfect quote for a particular point I'm trying to make. ChatGPT is almost always hallucinating the quotes and the citation. I think over like 50 cases, I had only one quote that was wrong, and then one quote was a few pages off, which is like miles and miles better than the other models have been doing, and it's just
Does Opus?
Opus 4.6, yeah. And so it just came out a couple weeks ago, and I've been really blown away by
It's really
what it's
good.
doing.
It's really good. It's going to continue to get better. But, all right, so as you can see, it's kind of like a back and forth trying to debug. I have not been able to get the nodes to work. The summary is working fine, but just not the nodes.
Okay, that's interesting.
So we'll give it one more shot. We got a minute, so now we'll leave it there. But I think, like, kind of to conclude, I think the coolest thing about these tools is that it just makes being a lawyer like more fun. At least like for me, I think it makes it more fun because it combines technology with something that we know well, or at least we're learning, which is the law. And so I think even just playing around with this, like just think of like a tool, like kind of like this, like, oh, class, let me make like a little tool, let me spend like 2-3 hours building it. You'll learn something about tech, and you'll learn something about the capability of the models. And I think as we go into practice, like we're in law school right now, so like as we start getting into the legal profession, we'll be able to make a lot more impact because these tools are going to infiltrate like law, in my opinion. I think like everybody's going to start using AI in some capacity, and so we're kind of like this wave that's coming in that's going to be AI native. And so when you know how like these tools work a little bit better, then that makes you that much better at your job as a lawyer, because now it's like you become either more trusting or less trusting, or you know how to go around these tools a little bit better when you're doing your legal research or when you're drafting a contract or you're drafting a motion. And also, I think it gives you a lot of security because you see that it's not perfect. And it's like, all right, like these tools are like cool, but they're not smarter than me. But to do that, you have to understand it. So, all right, let me upload it one more time, and then now we'll break. So, let's see. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna go. Well, we tried 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was cool. Thank you.
Alright, so we weren't able to finish the project during the talk, but I was able to get it to work. It took me about an hour after the talk to get it to work, but basically, I just kept going through the whole conversation with Cursor. The issue why it wasn't working during the presentation was because the framework that we were coding in, which was I think it was like React 19. Anyways, the framework that we were coding in that Cursor chose was not compatible with the React Flow library that we were using. So that's why everything that I kept trying did not work. But when I took a look at it a little bit deeper, I saw that it wasn't compatible and basically made that change. I then added a few different enhancements. So as you'll see from the first iteration, it didn't really have much, and the UI was not really, it was hard to know what to do, but now it's, clear call to action, the bot. So now I can either start from scratch and, start creating the different nodes like so, or I can actually go and create, we'll try, Axos. I can upload a case and it will now process it. So we see it's processing and it's going to do the full diagram. So it takes about a minute. So I'm going to pause it, and then when we get the diagram, it'll pull it back up. Okay, perfect. See, so now we have a whole diagram. This is a pretty complex case, but it does, it does the thing. I can download it, so I could upload it as a PDF, or I can download it as a PDF. This one might come out cut off, but again, it's just going to be more. Yes, it's going to be more programming that I'll have to do to get it to work that way. But the other cool thing I made is I did a little bit more in the summary, and I also put some RAG in it to back up its sources. Again, this actually was not difficult to add in, and I did a little hot take from Professor Bacola on his thoughts on the case. So I thought that was pretty funny, but yeah. So now I get a pretty good overview of the case. Anyways, this is, the power of vibe coding. I think in total, I think I spent about 30 minutes during the presentation. I spent another hour after to get it to work like this. And I got it at about another 30 minutes to get it to work. So, an hour to get an app up and running with some prior knowledge is not too bad. Now I want to go over something else that I think is important, which is what happens when I actually want to make this a live website. So to do so, we're going to use Vercel, and we're going to have to upload the repository to GitHub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign in to my GitHub account. And so I have my GitHub. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to first upload this code base into a GitHub repository. The way I want you to think of a GitHub repository is basically is just a code storage. So when we use Vercel to set up the server, which is like the computer, it's somewhere on the East Coast or somewhere that is actually hosting, like making this website run for everybody to see. It's going to direct its search of what to show on this repository that we're going to make. And so this part, I think, was one of the toughest things for me when to grasp as a programmer because it's really there's no programming or logic involved, but it's just like very tedious. But a good way to do it that I've seen that has worked really well is to just tell the AI. So I said, hey, I'm going to upload this to Vercel and GitHub. Please create an MD, which is just a markdown file to give me the instructions. And so it did. And so I'm just going to follow them and I'm going to upload it, right? So I'm going to go to GitHub. All right. I'm going to make the repository, set it to private, blah, blah, blah. The other thing that I could do actually is I can just go here and then connect it to my GitHub, right? But anyways, if you want to do it more manually, then what you would do is just follow the instructions right here that I showed. All right, so again, we're gonna go to GitHub. We're going to create a new repository, and it's gonna ask you what you want it to be called. I'm gonna name it Colabot. It's available, cool. I'm gonna make it private, very important. You could add a README, which is just instructions on how to get it set up, but this is gonna be private. I'm not going to do any of that. I just want to get it up and going. Okay, so now this is set up. And what I can do is I can just copy this, put this, sorry, I'm gonna use the existing repository. I'm just gonna copy this and I'm gonna put this into my terminal. That's why I said this is kind of like, if you're not technical, it's kind of difficult. So I'm just gonna put it here, and I got an error. Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on here, but you could also do is you could just go here. What you can do is you can just commit it. Give it some time. All right, I'm having some issues, so I'm just gonna go right down the line. So just gonna copy and paste all these commands. Oh, there it exists. So okay, so I'm just gonna push this code. Boom, cool. All right, so now when I refresh this, I have my full repository here. So again, it's kind of confusing. Really, you just gotta go on GitHub, create the repository, and then follow those instructions as I said. All right, so I'm gonna go back to this file, deploy. All right, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go. Oh, well, here it gave me the commands as well. So, anyways, that's fine. So okay, so now I'm gonna go to Vercel. So I'm gonna go to Vercel. So copy paste this in here. So Vercel's we're gonna host the website. And Vercel's pretty easy. I can just copy and paste this. So I can go just literally upload it. So okay, saying I have no access. Should be good. Maybe okay, it might be in this one. Let me see if it gets it. All right, let's see. I went back to GitHub. So we're saying I can't find it. Okay, for some reason it wasn't. It was because it was private, but anyways, I don't want to deal with like I just made it public. Okay, so I'm gonna create a Vercel, change the name. Yeah, there's all these like little things that always come up, and then it's like when you're recording, it's hard to like see how to fix it. But okay, so now it's taking all this information, but there is one thing that we have to do additionally. So it's gonna output the website, but it's not going to work because it doesn't have access to the API keys. Remember how I put those API keys in a different folder? So those can't be public facing. Like I can't just put them on the repository here. So I have to put them on the server side. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then I'm going to do so it works. Okay, see, so even here it's telling me that I need to set an API key. So what I'm going to have to do, anyways, it's giving me an error because of the OpenAI API key. So I'm going to have to go to a project. And what I have to do is I have to go to variables, which I believe is in settings, and then environment variables. Okay, and so again, all this is going to be on these instructions. So environment variables. So I'm going to add these four. And so what I'm going to just go here and I'm going to add environment variable, right? And so I could add all of them here. So it's going to be the key and the value. So I'm just going to, like, for example, here I have my OpenAI key, my Llama Cloud key, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just gonna put the same exact keys in the name and the key on here. So I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna show it, but I'm gonna do it. Okay, so I've just done that. So I just put my OpenAI key, my Llama Cloud key. Don't worry about the other one. It's just copy paste from a previous project. So okay, so now I'm gonna redeploy, and now I should be able to get an actual website build. So view deployment, boom, and so now I can actually access it. But we have an error, of course. All right, it seems like it's still building. So let's see what it tells us. Once you do this a few times, you just kind of figure it out. But so now if I go here, boom, cool. So now we got it. And now I can test it. I can use it how I did. And now this is a real production website. So again, not the cleanest. There's a lot of issues that we had to go through to deploy it, including getting the repository up. But anyways, I think lawyers could, like I said in the talk, I think lawyers could do this as an exercise and at least sharpen their technical abilities and understand what happens under the hood for these projects. And I think it could help you in your work because now when you're using these AI tools, you can understand a little bit better like where the information is coming from and how it connects. And you could even be able to give you're even able to give better feedback to other software vendors that you use on what type of software would be good. And a lot of these tools like Harvey create different workflows that if you learn how to be a little tech savvy, you could really take advantage of the workflows and be able to use AI creatively. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and